I challenge anybody listening to this that's never taken a steroid before. And I'm like, well, she's replacing me because his dick is big.
No wonder she has such mood problems and suddenly she doesn't like the exact same kind of men.
Spend 6 months of your life not being able to have an erection and then tell me it was worth it.
I have to disagree with you saying that.
But it also made me aware of the things I needed to work on from a confidence issue.
I had never felt more emotional distress in my entire life when I was in that. Yeah. Back with another episode of Transparent. But yeah, guys, we got Aram. Aram, what's your last name?
Grigorian.
Grigorian, that's a sick ass last name. Aram, this is the host of the Other Side Lifestyle podcast, as well as 4 weeks to the beach. And he is also a coach of one of my buddies, James Bonzel, who is one of the guys in The Bachelor that was on my podcast for episode 3, I believe.
Yep.
So he's like one of your 4 guys.
Yes.
Nice.
Highly successful, one of my 4 guys.
Nice. James, you're going to start looking like a female soon. Okay.
Don't freak him out because he's going to stop eating and he's going to start dieting.
Oh, shit. He's going through the bulking phase now, huh?
Dude, he's added 700 calories and lost 8 pounds.
What?
Well, dude, he's been under eating for a decade.
He increased at 700 calories and still lost 8 pounds.
Yeah, that's when a reverse diet works, man. It works if your body's been chronically depleted for that long. But
I wonder what his thyroid was like beforehand.
So he's not. I don't think he's ever been on anything. He's on TRT now. I'm sure you guys talked about that a little bit, or maybe you didn't. But I didn't listen to the entire episode. But he's relatively open about that. And why wouldn't you be? It's medically prescribed anyway. But he was kind of like your general strength trainer. And when I say general strength trainer, it means you think that more is better. It's always this approach of like, oh, I got to do more sets and reps. I got to do more exercises. Like a chest day for him lasted like 2 hours. Where when I showed him how to train chest, it was 3 movements, 3 sets of each, and work till failure on 2 out of 3 sets, and he was destroyed.
I mean, here's the way that I see it is that it really depends, because the thing is you could make the same gains from both ways. You don't really know how much you're maximizing. You kind of just have to figure it out for yourself, right? Like that amount of volume, but if you're pushing him to that amount of failure stimulation, maybe it does ensue as much volume as he needs to gain the same amount of mass. But sometimes there are some people, I don't know if it makes a difference depending on what you're on, because then again, your recovery could even be quicker during the exercise. But, more volume might actually amount to a little bit more mass in the long run.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely the curve is like this for sure.
Yes.
But, it's like if you are the guy who does want to spend the extra 30 minutes to an hour in the gym in order for you to become Mr. Olympia, then I guess I could understand that for the extra volume.
Yeah, again, context. Like if your goal
that was me too.
truly is to compete, then sure. I mean, your full-time job is training and eating and sleeping.
Yeah.
But if you have a life outside of that, like I'm not a competitor. I just want to look good. So why would I want to spend more time in the gym and eat more food when I can eat less food and spend less time in the gym? I just don't have the stomach capacity to grow as much as I'd like to because it's just uncomfortable for me. Am I willing to do the work to get it better? No, I'm not. Am I willing to spend as much time in the gym as some of the guys that I see in the gym? I'm not. So I have to accept the fact that I'm never going to look like that because I'm just not willing to do that level of work. But a lot of people don't ever reconcile that point. They always think like, well, if they could do it, I can do it too. Sure, you can. Do you understand what it takes though? And I think with somebody like James, he came into this world with a lot of basic knowledge, and now that knowledge is getting pushed to more of a nuanced point where now he understands the specifics of training, the specifics of how food interacts with the digestive system, why stress and sleep are so important, why recovery is important. And now you're taking a really good canvas and getting it even better. And that's the best I think anybody can hope for.
Right.
Is build that solid foundation. I mean, the guy's already in great shape. What I'm doing is I'm just taking him to that next level. Now, it may not be competitive level, but for him to have a lifestyle of, I could still go out to eat on the weekend. I could still have an off meal here and there. I can have a drink if I want to, and it's not going to throw off my progress. He can live a life of balance. And to anybody that's not competing, I think that should really be the ultimate goal is you should be very, very good at maintenance. Your maintenance should be like spot on. to me, that's like my company is called 4 Weeks to the Beach. And my mantra is, it's not a promise that you're going to get in shape.
That's a great name.
It's not a promise you're going to get in shape in 4 weeks. The promise is that your basics are so good that if you have something to do in 4 weeks that you want to be aesthetically pleasing for, you don't have to change everything and overhaul everything.
I see.
You could just dial up the knob of intensity and consistency a little bit more, and now you're there. Like,
that's sick.
You know, like for me, like I ate like shit all
Very sustainable.
like fucking Five Guys, candy, cookies, baked bear.
Oh, baked bear.
Dude,
oh, yeah.
Literally.
Shit.
All weekend. Now, am I going to weigh myself and look in the mirror on Monday morning and be like, I don't understand what happened. I'm fluffy now. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
But if I live like that, I have to accept that I'm not going to get to the next level because I'm not willing to do the work. And I want people to understand that anything is possible if your level of understanding of how to get there is very, very finely tuned and you're willing to make the sacrifice. I'm not, and I'm okay with it. But getting to that mental place of I'm okay with being okay is what a lot of people need to figure out.
Okay. Gotcha.
You know, especially if you're not a competitor.
Yeah, especially if you're not a competitor.
If you're a competitor, you better be willing to do whatever the fuck it takes.
Oh, it's fucking rough, man. Sometimes, for a period of time, I was just way too tired of spending that much time in the gym.
Yeah.
But especially if you're filming too, it's like overplay. Like it's like I'm literally I was in the gym every single day, because on the days that were rest days, I would still at least like film something.
Yep.
And then unfortunately on the days where I did have to prioritize filming as well, it was really, really hard to keep on my timed rest sets because the amount of time it takes to like prepare the filming and to like get prepared for that stuff and do all this other shit was, threw you off so much. So then the workout might take 2.5, 3 hours for a workout where it's like, it's just not optimal, but that I'm still wasting away how many calories doing how much actual movement and work. I don't know. That's a lot.
And then people don't, it's almost like take somebody who works in an office or like, let's say you work at a bank. The bank closes at 4. Do you want to stay there for another hour? Like, no, you don't. You want to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
People always think that like the general population thinks that people in fitness have it easier. Like, oh, well, you're in fitness. You're a coach. You're a trainer. You're a bodybuilder. This is all much easier for you. No, it's not. It's not any easier for us. It's arguably probably harder because we spend more time and more attention on it than you do. And we have much more skin in the game now because we've invested all this time and energy into it.
I would make the argument that it's just more passionate for us. Most likely. Because at least we also get to move,
Yes. Yes. I
I think that's a big factor for happiness.
Yes. Yeah. The lessons learned inside the gym are lessons that you can apply to anything else in life.
Right.
And I think when people don't look at it that way, they're missing out on a massive, massive portion of the benefit.
In the end, whatever you need, you can always make it happen, even if you have like an office desk or an office job that you're at the whole day. He and I basically just talked about how he has a standing desk. I have a treadmill desk. So I walk while I do my emails. I walk while I do my stuff so I can get my steps in.
Yeah.
So this is a little funny story, guys. This is the most random podcast I've ever done in my entire life. And I just met this guy randomly at the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how you meet all great men.
No, I agree, man. Like, there's all these, like, I'm going to be real. There's this one thing where I'm just like, I'm always kind of a little like conscious about like who I meet in person, like after you've built a name for yourself as well. You never know what someone wants from you, whether or not someone's trying to take advantage from you. But I've learned that, if I always keep my doors that reserved and I never leave them open to opportunities, that I'm closing up a lot of the opportunities I could have and a lot of the people I could meet. And by opening up those doors, so my friend Michael, my friend Larry, so Michael, Sony, Sherman, Larry Gao, and my friend Devin Larshade, they all live in LA and they all followed me on Instagram before I met them. They are my best friends now. They are my best fucking friends, bro. I love these guys to death. And honestly, it makes me tear up and I like want to cry just thinking about them. But I mean, that's like a huge example for me to remind myself that like, stop being so strict and closing, keeping my doors locked, leave some room for opportunity.
It's not hard to sense authenticity in somebody. And I think when you approach relationships, whether they be personal, intimate, whatever, if it's transactionally based, it's not hard to see. Like if you approach an interaction with somebody from the idea of, I want something from you and that's why I'm asking you for this, as opposed to, how can I help you help your people? How can I help you get your word out to the world? How can I have a conversation with you to open up more perspective for myself and yourself? And that's all it is. Like at the end of the day, I make money. I don't need yours.
Yeah.
I have a following. I don't need yours. And maybe your following is not the following I need to have. Right? So at the end of the day, two people that are like-minded in the same building, which we met at the gym, obviously we have very similar interests, but the way that you go about it and the way I go about it may be different. And maybe my audience can benefit from hearing it your way, and your audience can benefit from hearing it my way.
Right. Different perspectives. I always accept all of them. I think that's the best way to go about life.
Yeah.
But this guy, we just randomly met at the gym and started talking about podcast shit. This man is, he was previously, what were you in previously before?
I was trading commodities on the exchange in New York City, so I was like typical like Wolf of Wall Street, like finance.
Gotcha.
Bro.
So you're finance bro, and then you moved on to being a fitness coach.
Yes.
And dealt with a lot of areas that I'm actually very interested in, which is another reason that he's here. Is I think we're gonna have a really dope conversation that I'm excited about. One of the things that I'm very interested in that I haven't really gotten to delve deep into and learn is the bodybuilding industry and fitness with females. I've always been curious about how that goes. And this guy, majority of the people that he coaches is female, right? You said like about almost 95%?
Yeah, I think I have like 4 guys right now out of 75 people.
Oh, damn. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this will be cool. This will be sick.
Yeah.
But anyways, Aram, welcome. Aram, bro. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
In such random circumstances.
Yeah. Super random. The guy just sends me over text and I'm just like, I have no clue who this guy is. Like, I don't know when we're going to have time to do this. And then he just started shooting out like random things about open relationships and shit like that. I'm like, okay, interesting.
Dude, I'm an open book, man. And the thing is, I've had the most I've learned about myself and about my industry is by talking to as many people as possible and never discounting that somebody doesn't know something that I don't know. So at the end of the day, like I always want to be a sponge for whatever it is and any topic in the world. Like, because why not be a little bit more knowledgeable about something? Like, obviously, it's not going to be my field. Maybe it's not what I do for a living. But why not expose yourself to as much perspective, like you said at the beginning, as you possibly can to be open-minded? Because all the problems that occur in this world are because people are stuck in their own ways and are unwilling to see another perspective. That's where all of our problems stem from.
Right. I don't think there's any other way I don't think there's a better way to go about it. If you want to learn, then the only way is to expose yourself to new perspectives. I think the world is fluid and a lot of people are like chopsticks. And I think in order for you to really maximize your potential in this world, and it's learning how to be fluid, like a monk in a way, whether or not it's perspectives, it's opinions, it's making sure that you're neuroplastic and that you can change or learn more. Yeah.
You're neuroplastic. You just used something that's a noun and turned it into a very effective verb.
Thanks. I don't know if that's even a whatever.
Now it is.
But okay, so I like to start off with some story time, especially since I don't know anything about you. Yeah. So if you could just give me a little bit more about your story. Like you said, you started like lifting and fitness like 23 years ago. Like what inspired you to become a fitness coach from finance and stuff? And then I definitely want to ask you about females in fitness.
So I think I started off like a lot of guys start off, which is I want to look a certain way to get certain types of attention. I mean, that's really why I started. It was purely aesthetics based. I was 15 years old. I never got much attention from girls in high school. And I realized that the people that were getting attention from girls in high school were all the guys that were jacked and on the football team. So naturally, I'm like, cool, let's go sign up for the football team and lift weights with them. What I really found out is I sucked at sports and I was really good at weightlifting. It just came naturally to me. I understood how to move my body. I understood that I was accepting of the level of discomfort that it took. Mm-hmm. And I had no problem working harder at the training aspect of it than the athletics aspect of it. Because I never really I'm not a competitive person. So for me, competing and winning doesn't mean anything to me. Okay. But the process of lifting weights was fascinating. like the pain that you were able to endure and then the outcome of that pain was very important and very shifting for me as a person, because it built resilience, it built grit. And I was never afraid of hard work. I'm a Russian immigrant. I came here when I was 5 in 1989.
Okay.
So my back's always been against the wall. So pushing me against the wall was never a problem. Like, push me as hard as you want, I'll just keep pushing back. Watching my parents work 3 different jobs, raising myself basically. Like, I didn't have any of those. Like, nothing was ever comfortable for me. And I lifted weights purely just to build muscle and just be a badass. And that was it.
Nice.
And that evolved into going to college and starting to help my friends with their transformation journeys and having them build muscle. And, you know, that was back in the day when like ephedrine was over the counter. You know, people were just buying up muscle magazines left and right. And that's how you were learning. You were learning by doing. There was no Instagram. There was no online coaching. There was nothing. You either knew somebody at the gym who knew what they were doing, or you read stuff. And that was the only basis of information you had. So it was trial by fire. I mean, shit, I was 16 years old doing military seated press, like 225 for sets of 8.
Jesus.
Like, stupid. I mean, listen, arching my back, throwing, you know, doing everything I could to get it up, but I was doing
225
strict press, military seated for
barbell
overhead.
Dude, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, fast forward now, I can't bench press flat anymore.
Yeah.
But
this is the shoulders.
Right, but like we just did it. We were working out in a gym where dudes would come into the gym at 7 o'clock after work in their Carhartts, in their boots, you know, working 12, 15-hour shifts on a job site. And then those were the dudes we were surrounded by when we were training. So we weren't allowed to be like, oh, this is hard or this is uncomfortable. And what does failure mean? They're like, just fucking work until you can't work anymore. That's how we were taught how to lift. And
even to this day too, you're just on TRT. You haven't ever touched PEDs, right?
I'm actually happy I never did, because I see the problems that younger guys are having because they're starting so much earlier on without the level of knowledge and the understanding of what the exogenous hormones are doing to them.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I don't ever want to demonize anything, because I think anything done in the right dosages is probably safe and effective. And if you have an exit strategy. And we talked about
that's beautiful. That's a great way to say that.
You know, like, there's nothing wrong with testosterone, but if you take a lot of it and your body's still producing a shit ton of it, what you're doing is you're basically telling your body, I don't need this anymore, so stop production of it.
Yeah, you're throwing away the stuff that you already got.
Right. So but when you're 22, you don't fucking need it. Just eat food. Calories are anabolic. I don't care how you slice it. Like, that is your best anabolic performance enhancer on earth.
Like, I can understand if you were 22 and somehow you are so gifted and you have trained for a decade and more that you have built so much muscle mass, and now your testosterone is somehow declining before the age of 25 or something. I mean, if there is a possibility, which there is always the possibility, I could see how, like, oh, you want to jump on the Olympia stage, so now you got to maximize and overcome the natural potential that you've about reached. That can start making more sense to me, but that's obviously very rare. I think the thing that I see the most in the industry for young people are that they're more so in a hurry to reach that potential. So they think that blasting the test is going to get them there quicker rather than overcoming a limit.
Yeah.
So, and at least that's what I see. Is like people are like doing it for speed rather than for overcoming natural limits.
Well, and what's the context? Why are you doing it? Are you doing it to truly become a competitive bodybuilder, or are you just trying to get laid on the weekends? Because
or are you just trying to get big on Instagram?
Right. So if it's this is my opinion purely. If your context and reason for doing a drug, like any performance enhancing drug out there, is not purely for the sake of being super physiological in order to get to the next proverbial level, then you're essentially
for a sport too. Yeah.
Right. And I'm fine. Like, listen, PEDs in sports, I know the people that prescribe those literally to athletes that are professionals.
Right.
And they're all drug free. No, they're fucking not. You do it to get ahead in life. It's no different than the Wall Street guy who has information that you and I don't know about, and that's what he trades on, and that's why he's rich. There's a reason why the best of the best stay the best of the best, because they have tactics that they employ that we don't have, that average people, I don't say we, that average people don't have. So when you want to be that high above average, and when everybody in the water that you're swimming in is filled with sharks that are above average, you got to level up to that point, or else you're going to drown and get eaten. It's over. But if you're just doing it purely because I want to get bigger faster, Is it worth the harm that you're
Is it worth it? It's so
Right.
much to deal with, dude. Yeah, I just don't think it's worth. But that's me.
They don't see it because a 22-year-old kid who sees his buddies doing it and having no real immediate problems is like, oh, he's doing 500 milligrams of test and 500 milligrams of tren and 50 milligrams of Anavar every day, and he's fine. Well, he's fine now as a 22-year-old kid who's got a good liver and a good life. What happens 5, 7, 15 years from now? Are you willing to pay that price later on? I know guys that are in their 40s now who have to go to a doctor once a week to have to be able to manage all sorts of symptoms of depression, erectile dysfunction. Like when you stop operating, and then we're talking about it from the male context, spend 6 months of your life not being able to have an erection and then tell me it was worth it. Because that's what happens. That's the future you're signing up for if you don't know how to manage drugs properly. So don't go into it with the idea.
And like literally 1% of the future.
And
There's another 99% of problems that you can encounter.
And that exactly. But I'm talking about something that a guy that's listening to this could relate to. Like,
Right.
you're having no problem in that department now? Great. What happens when you do? Are you mentally equipped to be able to handle that?
Yeah.
Are you in a relationship where you're able to have that conversation with your significant other because you have no libido and can't get it up anymore because of your history of drug use? And was it worth it to look like a statue and not function as a man? I would argue it isn't. So that's my perspective on at least doing it without the knowledge base, trying to be too aggressive about it, trying to be faster than you need to be, because you can do a lot naturally. And testosterone levels, yes, on average, we've seen the research on it, they're declining year after year. Men are becoming compromised from a testosterone perspective year after year. There's plenty of research. We have more and more estrogenic chemicals in our space, water bottles, toxins in the water, toxins in our environment are depleting our testosterone.
Man points at my water bottle.
That's why I use metal.
Yeah.
That's why I use metal now.
I wonder if the BPA free from blender bottles makes it me.
They say,
differences
but who knows, right? Like we don't know. Everything is friggin' causing cancer and dropping testosterone. We don't know. But at the end of the day, if we see that the research is trending in that direction, what can you do as a man who's in his teens, 20s, 30s to be able to amplify that function naturally? Well, it's very simple. Build as much muscle as naturally possible. Eat as well and as consistently as you can. Get as much sleep as possible. Keep stress down. The basics work. It's just they don't work fast enough. That's really what it is. It's just, are you patient enough to be able to play the long game?
Yeah. Right.
So, I mean, we could talk about, I think the realm of PEDs is fascinating because there's an immediate negative connotation by the general public when you hear the word steroid. Now, I challenge anybody listening to this that's never taken a steroid before, especially if you're a female or male. It's okay to give a 12-year-old girl birth control. And what's birth control? Birth control is a synthetic
it's like
format of progesterone.
Yeah.
What's progesterone? It's a sex hormone. What's testosterone? It's a
Sex hormone.
So, boom, you're giving your 12-year-old daughter, for the sake of being able to alleviate her period symptoms, a steroid. I don't care how you slice it. It's a steroid.
It's no wonder she has such mood problems and suddenly she doesn't like the exact same kind of men.
Right.
You know?
And then fast forward that same female who's been now on 25 years of birth control, you don't think natural production of hormones has ceased or has been inhibited? And now you have women that are having weight problems in their 30s and 40s, mood disorders in their 30s and 40s. Where do you think it comes from? It's a chicken or the egg problem. We know why, but we still have this very archaic way of thinking about something as simple as a sex hormone. The second it becomes placed in a sports performance or bodybuilding background, it's evil. How dare you put a needle in your ass and go to the gym? That's not right. But no, TRT's okay. That's fine. We can accept that. Birth control's okay. That's okay. But why is it not okay in that context? So we have to start to understand that if the person using that compound understands the risks and the rewards and they're able mind and able body to use them, it's up to them. I have no judgment of you. I'm never going to discount an athlete like Barry Bonds because he took steroids. I can't hit a baseball that goes 95 miles an hour. I don't give a shit how big I am. It gives you an advantage if you're already good at that thing, but it doesn't make you better at that thing.
Right.
And that's all it is.
And I really agree with you there, but there are just so many people. There's just so many people out there that it's not hard not to judge, to be honest. And if someone's having issues with being comfortable where they sit and where they are right now, say you're, I don't know, like a 20, 25-year-old male, considered, maybe even considering yourself an incel who wishes that you had a greater physique or something, but too scared of needles and doesn't ever want to do that. I would tend to say that I see a lot of hate towards someone like bodybuilders who do use PEDs coming from places like that.
And it's sad because a lot of times there's this negative connotation also to the fact that it discounts the work that a bodybuilder does. Mm-hmm. I used to think that way.
I like to say it has absolutely zero ties whatsoever, because you could be a bodybuilder who takes PEDs who works 1,000 times harder than the natural version of you, versus someone who, you know, takes PEDs and then just doesn't even fucking eat the diet and do any of the shit. That's why they. But I mean, at least normally it's visually, you know, it's visually clear at the same time. Normally.
Also, too, think about it this way. Anybody that's never swam in that water doesn't know what that feels like. Like if you never attempted bodybuilding or tried to enhance your physique to something that's really extreme, like let's say get down to 7% or 5% body fat as a normal person, you have no idea what it takes. So you'll find every reason to scapegoat somebody else and say, oh, well, they had help. They had genetics. They had drugs. That's why it was so easy for them. Right. It's like, dude, you never tried. You never tried because you never had the mental fortitude to even attempt it. So you're going to look at somebody who's taken, let's say, 5 or 7 rounds of steroids over the course of their lifetime, and they've achieved this amazing body. Okay, well, you're going to discount all the meals that they've eaten and prepared. You're going to discount all the nights they said no to booze. You're going to discount the countless hours in the gym that they spent, the nights that they had to go to bed at 8 while you were out partying. That stuff all goes away because they put a needle in themselves? Absolutely not. None of that work gets washed away. Nope. That work gets enhanced. That's why it's called a performance enhancer. It doesn't do the work for you. No. It just makes the work a little bit more effective.
And in my opinion, probably makes it mentally more difficult.
When you're on versus off?
Yeah, like the
pressure's higher.
Well, I don't think just the pressure, but the just like if you're a girl on birth control, a lot of them don't respond mentally well.
Yes.
Well, a lot of them.
The mental...
If not the majority. And I see that true with PEDs too. Yeah. Especially I can tell you for myself, like, dude, I love how it feels to just cruise. I love how it feels to just be on TRT. I feel amazing. Yeah. The moment I decided that I want to run a cycle and I want to like look shredded, like I take like Masteron or Winnie or something, my DHT increases. I decided that I want to look a little leaner, so my estrogen goes lower. I have this imbalance of hormones. I feel fucking aggressive. I feel irritable. I feel upset. I'm never satisfied with what I've got in my life because I want to get more. So much, and it's all mental. And the cool thing is that now that I put myself through that, when I am on TRT, I have such amazing mental health because I've put myself through the harder, you know, hurdle to, you know, jump through. But it doesn't change the fact that like it's pretty dangerous for mental health.
But you're also an informed user. You're somebody who's done the research, who's had the help. You know, it's not like you didn't go on some forum online. Because that's how we learned back then. Like we learned about PEDs because there was forums online about other meatheads talking about
the bodybuilding forums.
You know, now I've been through 4 different PED courses that were led by people that were biologists, that were biochemists, that had high levels degrees of education in pharmacology. So none of this stuff is really that out. It's out in the open now. We have education on it.
We do. It's a lot more open.
So if you're somebody who's pursuing this world, do yourself a favor and spend the money and the time to educate yourself on it. And then absolutely go do what you want to do, because now you're coming from it from a lens of education and awareness, as opposed to my head's in the sand and I have no clue. Like you're not just going to walk into a club and grab a pill that some dude hands you and doesn't tell you what it is.
But you know a lot of people do that.
I've never done it, and I'm a crazy person, and that sounds shitty to me and dangerous, but I would never just buy something online because somebody said that, oh, I bought this stuff from this website and it works great, and then just load it into a syringe and then put it in my body without any understanding of what that compound is meant to do or how it interacts with my physiology, what the duration of the course should be, what the dosages should be. And all of these things are specific to the individual. It's no different than food. Food is medicine also. Like you eat a certain amount based on your goals and your body type. You take a certain amount of drug based on your goals and your body size. It's that simple. It's milligrams per kilogram. Just like food is calories per kilogram. That's really all it is. It's about that simple, but you have to at least know the baseline and the understanding. and then match it to you as a person. You can always do more. You can never do less.
Okay. So that's what you meant before when we were talking about how you find it simpler than people put. I can see that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's a lot of different compounds, but they're all derived off of 3 different subsets, right? There's testosterone, there's 19-nor, and there's 5-alpha. So if you understand the 3 tree branches, and then you understand the different compounds that fall off those 3 tree branches, it becomes that simple. And you understand what effect, and I don't like the word side effect, because side effect means that something bad is going to happen. But the reality is everything has a side effect. If you eat too much food, you get fat. That's a side effect. So you could eat nothing but protein and eat too much of it, and you'll get fat. That doesn't mean that the protein is at fault, just like it doesn't mean the drug is at fault. It means you abused or overdid that certain compound.
For yourself, right?
For your specific situation. So if you understand the 3 different tree branches and what falls off those branches, you understand how to use those synergistically together to create the best possible outcome at the lowest possible dose. Because why stress the body out and why give it more to recover from and more to metabolize than it needs to, right? Like if you can get the same of euphoria from 1 hit of ecstasy versus 5, why not do 1 versus 5? You're poisoning your body less. You're putting less exogenous stuff into your body to have it recover from.
I agree that part is simple, but I have to disagree with you saying that the whole in general is simple. Because in my opinion, PEDs, the whole realm, is probably one of the most complicated things that I've ever come across. Not when it comes to dosing protocols. I think if you're trying to think of a dosing protocol, it can be simple to start off with keeping in mind the phrase, start low and titrate as needed. But what makes it incredibly complicated, in my opinion, is the fact that we are so complicated, dude. The science in the gym is so complicated, and the fact of the matter is everyone reacts to things so differently. And I know you, like, from what you've learned, you can say what you said just now, but you have to get your blood work done regularly, and you have to check up on that. And there are so many different things that can change based off of everything you're taking, and there are just so many different variables that it is very, very hard to pinpoint things sometimes, which is why you have to play simply. You basically have to play like an elimination diet, but with PEDs, and that's why you have to do the blood work, because you have to see the results in order for you to change the procedure accordingly. If you're not doing the blood work, then you're literally throwing a pin in the dark. And so I just see so many like, I just see a lot of things go wrong because people aren't conscious enough about this. And I've seen a lot of, I don't want to name names, and I know that you feel the same way that I do when it comes to coaching nowadays, but I've seen a lot of bodybuilding coaches that will just give the same cookie cutter program to people. When someone asks, why am I taking AIs with this? Why am I taking whatever? They're just like, just do it because I said so. And then this guy has crashed estrogen and has joint problems, and then ends up having heart issues, and then has to go to the doctor because he gets heart palpitations and all these other issues that are related to the influx of like imbalance in his hormones, simply because the coach said, just do what I said, rather than explain the science behind it. Yeah. So I'm seeing a lot of that.
Yeah, dude, I couldn't agree with you more. And it's like, this is your health. You know what I mean? Like, I think people think about aesthetics as this like very simple. I don't want to say it's not simple, because I think the reality of it is you can dumb it down and make it very, very singular. But it doesn't have to be the mess that it's become. And I think it's become a mess because people don't do their due diligence before they either hire somebody or they truly don't understand what they're getting themselves into. Like, I've always been an informed purchaser. Like, I never touched drugs until I was 24 years old. I just didn't do it. I didn't do it because I was afraid of them, because I didn't understand what the outcome would be. So I'm like, you know what? I'm 24. I'm going to let my guard down a little bit. I'm going to try this thing. And I think trial by fire does work to some extent. But before I tried, let's say, blow for the first time, I knew what it was supposed to physiologically do to me based on what I read.
Right.
And then I tried it. I'm like, okay, that kind of matched up to what I expected. Mm-hmm. But then you can't account for the psychological effects of what happens afterwards. Because nobody really talks about that. Like, oh shit, I feel like God for 2 hours. Or I actually want to pair this with every time I drink now because I like the way that I feel and I don't want to drink without it. So now I can't have a good time without it. So that means that now I basically have turned myself into a cokehead because of it.
Yeah.
Like nobody talks about that part of it because what you see in movies is a lot of people having a lot of fun and life being really great, but nobody talks about the downside of it. Just like people see the effects of steroid usage as either really, really bad because you hear the high school special, the after school special of the guy who had to get gynecomastia surgery, or he was so aggressive that he beat his girlfriend. Like we saw those movies when we were kids. Or you see the guy who looks like an absolute Greek statue and looks amazing. There's no in between. What about the person that's just starting to dabble into it and trying to learn and get their feet wet?
Yeah, not everybody's transparent, so you can't see that. It's hard to see that.
Yeah, and we need more of that. We need more conversations like this. We need more people that have done it and have experienced it, the highs and the lows and the middle ground, because the middle ground is not a bad place to be, right? Like you said, I like to cruise. Cruising is maintenance.
Yeah.
Maintenance, especially with people that have physique goals, is terrifying to them because what does that mean? I'm not making progress? No, you're just fine-tuning your skill set.
Right. I can attest to that for the people out there that are in that place, though. In speaking for them out of empathy, I personally don't give a fuck, which is why I do this. But when you are kind of in that middle ground, someone kind of like me who I know some people like to say, oh, you got a great physique, blah, blah, blah. That's why you have like this many or whatever you're doing this well on social media. But like, you know, I'm not on the Olympia stage. Like I'm not Chris Bumstead. I'm not huge. I've never like blasted tests at high amounts in order to gain mass, and I haven't eaten for that reason. I haven't eaten for the reason of gaining weight while I was on PEDs. So I'm like at this place where I'm holding mass that's holdable for someone at a very, very high natural testosterone level, say 1,000, because that's where I've been sitting at with tests for a long, long period of time. And like I'm just open about PEDs, and sometimes there will be comments of people like, dude, this guy's not even that amazing. Like he should be. There's a lot of bodybuilders that are way bigger than him. Like and he's already like, you know, he's talking about PEDs and shit. So like, why do you listen to him? Why does he have credibility? Now I can see in other people's, you know, aspect why a lot of people don't want to talk about it then if they're at that place, right? Because they're afraid that, just as you said earlier, it's going to detract from their hard work or who they are as a person, which I think it shouldn't. But
no,
but
we live in a world where it's okay to get shit-faced every weekend. We laugh at 16-year-olds who get drunk and throw up at their parents' house. They make movies about it. It's so socially acceptable. But God forbid you smoke pot. And even we live in a weed legal state, and people still think of weed as this demonic, horrible thing. So, like, we haven't caught up with the times yet. And I think people are still demonizing things purely from a sense of, I don't understand what this thing is because I've never personally done it. So I'm going to stand on the sidelines and comment.
Yeah. I think people are always going to be like that, though.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever going to change. I think it's human nature, to be honest.
No, but I like to at least provide perspective. Like, I think perspective is valuable if you receive it. Right? If like, anything is great if somebody understands and accepts what it is. It's no different than like watching like a slasher horror movie. Like somebody can find it absolutely repulsive and disgusting, and somebody can find it funny. You know, there's a bunch of movies that just came out this past Halloween season that were grotesque to somebody. But I watch it with the lens of this is entertainment. Yeah. It's entertainment. It's not supposed to make me think a certain way or evoke this positive response. It's just supposed to be what it is. So if you can accept that level of thinking, you can understand that there are multiple perspectives in the world. We don't all have to agree with one another to like one another, and we're not obligated to even like one another to coexist. It just means that you stay in your lane and do what you're good at and think the way that you do, but at least accept that there are other ways to think and do things. And that to me is somebody who can live a very peaceful life with a lot of positive energy, as opposed to sitting around like judging and critiquing and having all this negative connotation and everything. That must be just absolutely overwhelming and a burden. And I just don't understand why it's necessary. Like, why does somebody have to troll on the internet and comment on your life and say that what you're doing is wrong? Why the fuck do you care? You're sitting in your mother's basement yelling at this kid who's clearly been working his life off to look a certain way, and he doesn't look like Chris Bumstead. Maybe he's not trying to. Maybe he knows that his natural levels are where he's at, and he's going to get the best out of what he can get, and he's not trying to be on the Olympia stage. And if he is, he's going to change his behavior to match that because he knows how. So you commenting is not going to change his trajectory. And if you're a strong person like you are, you're just going to take that fuel and take that fire and apply it to your tradecraft. I love negative commentary. I love when people come after me on Instagram because I say a lot of shit that turns people off sometimes because I tell them the hard truth. And I've been called a sexist, a feminist, a misogynist because my audience is 80% female.
Wait, a feminist and a misogynist at the same time?
Or sorry, not a feminist. A misogynist.
Oh, okay.
I am a feminist because I do agree in that anybody should have equal rights, men, women included. I don't care. But when my messages are, in my opinion, messages of empowerment for women to lift weights, to strength train, to build muscle, to be able to eat more food, to not be restrictive, I can do it in satirical ways. Like I had a post about a year ago at this point now where I was like sarcastically saying that, ladies, did you know that they make weights heavier than 10 pounds? And that if you use those weights that are heavier than 10 pounds, you won't look like me. And 80, 90 positive comments. And then 3 people that were like, you think we're stupid. You think just because we're girls that we don't want to lift heavy or that we're not going to lift. That's not what I said. You took it out of context because of your prior misconceptions, because of your belief system, because of the way that you live your life. But I wasn't targeting you. Yeah. I wasn't aiming at you and I wasn't trying to offend you. You got offended because you got offended and I can't control that.
There's a lot of projecting there.
Oh, man. Daily.
Yeah.
It's almost daily.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it doesn't bother me because I can't help the way that you're going to receive my message.
Yeah. Exactly. Know? That's why I just don't ever really deal with the comments anymore. I do want to continue to give attention to my supporters as much as I can, but in the end, though, most of the time, I really just couldn't give a shit about the comments there.
The hate comes when you start becoming relevant.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody's going to comment on a person who doesn't have any clout and any influence in this world.
Yeah, everybody that's succeeded has some hate somewhere.
You have to.
Everybody ever.
But sometimes it's necessary for you to hear it to allow for yourself to actually be able to receive it and see if it's actually going to be constructive criticism.
Right.
Can I actually change the way that I word this thing to be more all-encompassing and more effective and capture the hearts and minds of more people? Or can I just keep it the way it is and be authentic to me because that's who I am and I don't care about your negative commentary? I have the space for both. So in the cases that I was called a misogynist, I was easily dismissive of that because I know I'm not. I live my life in a way that's very exemplary of not being a misogynist.
Right.
So if you think that, great. Sorry, Karen.
Yeah.
Not my fault.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to adjust my behavior because of it because I'm not going to dumb down and diminish the way that I want to help people because I offended one person out of it's collateral damage. You're going to offend somebody at some point. Oh, well. I don't have enough time or enough time on this earth to worry about who potentially can be affected by my message. Because at the end of the day, I spread much more positivity than negativity. And that's all it is.
This podcast isn't sponsored, but the way that I make my living and that I fund the podcast editors as well as my YouTube videos is through using code NILE for Young LA clothing. That's a fitness and street brand, and then Huge Supplements, which is the supplements I take with all the whey proteins, vegan proteins, as well as a lot of ancillary supports. Which are the elemental line for if you're bodybuilding or you're even taking PEDs, as well as something called Defense, also for your organs, a lot of other things that I use. Thank you guys again for everything. And then finally, my HRT clinic, Trenscend HRT, is the clinic where I get my TRT, my healing peptides, as well as all the other things that I have for hair loss prevention and erectile dysfunction, if you may have that. So most of the people that you work with are females, right? In 4 weeks to the beach, your fitness company?
Yes.
So I want to know more about that because I've always been interested in how fitness is. I understand that there's a lot of aspects of fitness that are aligned and similar for both genders, but there are some things about the hormonal aspects for females who compete naturally, and then a lot of things for the hormonal aspects in females who don't compete naturally that I'm not knowledgeable of. So I want to ask you, in your experience over the past few years dealing with females, how can you tell me some stories of how dealing with females has been different than your own journey or dealing with males?
The largest difference is the psychology. There's an aesthetic standard, right? Like a guy can put on, let's just say like life went to shit for you for whatever reason, God forbid, and you lost your abs, you lost your striations, you lost your muscle tone.
Oh man, lost my striations.
But I'm just saying, like,
I don't know if I could live anymore.
Worst case scenario, you can still go to a bar and strike up a conversation, and a girl can still find you charming. You can still have that confidence to be able to speak. There's not that much pressure on you to be like, well, you have to be dick skin lean all year round.
Right, because that's not the main dictator of mating value.
Right. Whereas I think women are held to the standard by society where like, well, if Martha put on 10 pounds, something's got to be fucked up in her life. Like, why is she not controlling herself? Like, God forbid she puts on this little bit of weight.
Fuck this society.
But meanwhile, people don't realize it's much, much harder for a female to maintain her weight than it is for a male. Our natural set point is much more set in stone than theirs is. Like, we have to kind of...
Our body fat set point.
Our body fat set point, our muscle... I mean, obviously...
Theirs is more variable.
A lot, because they have those hormonal fluctuations.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Until you...
So, like, you're including water weight in the equation.
I mean, most of it's fluid. I mean, I've seen women gain and lose 13 pounds of scale weight in a 24-hour period.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Purely just because
From hormones,
of a nasty period, right? Like the first onset of the period is day one, and all of a sudden now they've spiked. And now they're retaining fluid. And they can wake up that morning and be like, holy shit, like nothing. I've been eating so well and I've been training, and all of a sudden this just happened. And they have this mental downward spiral. Whereas like a guy that puts on 5 to 6 pounds in the course of a weekend because he went out with his buddies all weekend, drank and ate whatever, he doesn't have that same, and I don't want to say all men don't have this, but I want to say most men, they don't have that same emotional attachment to a number on the scale or to a visual aspect of the mirror, whereas a woman does. So when it comes to female physique competitors or bikini competitors or whatever, what they end up building is the best version of what their body will ever look like. And that body is hanging on by a thread. The amount of work that woman has to do to get to where she got, and they forget that there's a level of maintenance required of that physique now. You can't just go back to what average looked like 6-7 months ago. Your body has changed. Your physiology has changed. Your hormonal balance and structure has changed. So what you do to get there is not what you do to keep it. And what you do to keep it is going to be very, very different than what you kept your last physique at. So that variability alone is very tough to reconcile for women, because they always see what their potential was, and they don't last very long at that place unless it is completely enveloping their entire lifestyle. Like if you don't do competition as your main gig, you're probably not going to have an easy time reversing out of a show. And when I've worked with female competitors reversing out of shows, it is a very critical period. You're basically taking somebody who's so depleted, so dieted down, so hormonally compromised, and you have to be so careful with how you get them out of that, because they can gain 12, 15 pounds in a week.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now you've just taken this confident woman who's just seen the best version of herself and completely fucked her up. And a lot of coaches out there don't give a shit, because they'll work with them through the competitive phase, and they'll get them on stage, and they'll be all happy because they got on stage, and now the coach has some accolades, and they'll be like, just go back to maintenance. Good luck. Maintenance was fucking 2,400 calories. She's on 1,100 now. What are you doing?
20 donuts later, and she's depressed.
Not to mention, what were the protocols used to get to that 12% body fat? Because a woman sub 15 is ridiculous. Like once a woman hits like 15, 13, I mean, that is about as low as it gets. Mm-hmm. Like a guy can be 3 or 4. I mean, obviously we've seen it on stage. Mm-hmm. But a woman to break 15% body, I mean, a woman looks amazing at 25% body fat. Yeah. Let alone 15. So there's a huge psychological component of this, and a lot of coaches out there are not doing women any favors. And there's a very large community of disordered eaters that are being created because of women's bodybuilding. Because there's nobody I don't want to say nobody, there's a lot of coaches that I'm connected with that do a very good job at this. Not a lot of people are talking about the mental impact of what happens afterwards. And are you prepared to deal with the potential addition of fat onto your frame? after you've just worked for 16 weeks to get it off. And it's inevitable. You can't reverse out perfectly without putting on an ounce of weight. You can't. It's just impossible. And are you willing to do the drugs that are required to get to that point? And what does it look like coming off of those drugs?
The drugs, are you speaking for those who aren't natural, or are you talking about? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
but the rest of what you were talking about was in general. That
was in general. That was both natural and enhanced.
Right.
But I think it's almost arguably harder because the mental downturn, given the pharmacological compounds that are being added and removed based on what phase of competition they're in, is going to mess with their mental state. It has to.
Yeah. Mental state and hormones even more, right?
Yeah, you're talking about dopamine, serotonin that's going up and down relative to even stuff like gut health.
Yep.
So it's a slippery slope. And watching women suffer from this is the reason why I started working primarily with females, because females need the most help because they're the ones that are being fucked over the most in the business, in my opinion. Like, men are not being targeted as aggressively. Like, we don't have pink protein powders and pink gloves and pink bar pads.
Oh, dude, this is facts.
You know what I mean? Like,
I actually never think about this, but this is absolute facts. It is true.
Like, there's no such thing as a female-specific protein powder. Protein is fucking protein. If it's whey, if it's soy, it's protein.
Right.
Like, you don't have to slap a pink label on it just to get a girl to buy it. And if you do, you're an asshole.
Right.
You're immediately lying to her, telling her that this product is superior to that product because it's targeted and formulated for women, which is immediately a lie.
There's a lot. Females are spending a lot less investment into figuring out the actual science of bodybuilding versus males when it comes to. I mean, I know a lot of them want to look great, but
they're also being. It's not their fault.
Definitely truth.
It's not their fault. It's the information that's being provided to them, and it's because for every one good coach there is, a lot of the good coaches don't have big followings. I know guys and girls that are functional medicine, bodybuilding focused coaches that have 3,000 or 4,000 followers, but they've put 150 people on stage, and they've had high level national and regional success. But you don't hear about them because they purposely stay quiet, because they know their community is small and referral based, but they're doing the best work. And then you got bodybuilding coaches that have 500,000 followers, 1 million followers. And now this information is being spread out on a widespread scale.
Right.
And you're seeing this woman who's coaching other women who for breakfast posted she had an Adderall and a coffee.
Dude, I was actually a coach for some period of time, and I got to be real, man. Like, I loved coaching, but I don't think I ever had more than 15 clients. And I was working from 8 a.m. till midnight every day.
My God.
I was working constantly because I was also trying to do my Instagram posts and my social media at the same time. But the fact of the matter is, I'm seeing single human beings who have 200 clients. And I'm thinking, how the fuck do you have the time, the energy, the compassion, the empathy in order to create that relationship with every individual person to know exactly what's going on in their life, mentally, spiritually, physically, all down to their diet, the PEDs that they may be taking for 200 people each week? Like, how the fuck? How is that possible? I don't understand. I was exhausted with 15 people. I upcharged so much because I was exhausted from 15 people. And then I just couldn't do it anymore. So I quit coaching.
Well, not a lot of people operate with your level of integrity, right? Like, I respect the fact that I hear that story, and it gives me hope that there are still good coaches out there, or coaches who know when to step away. Because at some point it becomes just a business. It just becomes, you're a factory now. You're just getting people in. You're producing some type of a relationship, barely, very transactional. You're getting some money, and you don't care about that individual. And there's a as a coach, you remember, you eat negative energy all day long. Like, that's my snack. Like, I eat 5 meals of negative energy a day, every day. Like, whether it's complaints about this isn't working, or I'm not happy, or I'm freaking out, or I've had a bad day. Like, it's never like, hey coach, nailed my hip thrust PR today. Thank you. Like, I get one of those in a week. And then I get 40 panic messages about scale went up, measurements went up, mirror looks like shit, I don't feel good, and you have to address the negative just as much as you address the positive. Like, yeah, you can't take on a big caseload, because at that point you're not doing every single individual you're not giving them the due attention that they need. Now, granted, there are some people who don't need all the accountability and all the help. Some people are just rock star clients. Like, you just give them a plan, They're ready to fire off on all cylinders. They check in with you proactively. You don't need to even chase them for a damn thing. And they're great. But that's like 1%. Everybody else needs a little bit of a hand to hold and a shoulder to cry on and an inspirational speech every once in a while. Like my coaching, as much as it's nutrition and fitness based, 90% of the time, I'm not talking about reps and sets or calories. I'm talking about emotional well-being. I'm talking about how your day went, what's going on with your spouse. Are your kids sick? How's the job environment? What happened to your parents-in-law? Like that's what we're talking about because that's the shit that's going to change their mental outlook and prevent them from going to the gym or prevent them from eating a certain way. Because women tend to be more emotional eaters than men are. So if you're an emotional eater and you're trying to lose weight, good luck. It's going to suck for you.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be that much tougher when your hormones are jacked up and you're in the middle of you're at the beginning of your cycle.
Dude, it is exponentially harder when your hormones are jacked up.
Yeah. And why are we not taking all these things into consideration? So the job of the coach at that point is not even to coach through an improvement phase. It's just to be able to mitigate expectations of that person in a really shitty time of their life and telling them like, hey, maybe this is not a time for you to start shooting for the stage. Maybe right now is not it. You're in the middle of a job loss. You and your boyfriend are fighting every day. You're late on rent. You haven't been able to meal prep. You haven't been able to go to the gym more than 3 times a week. Maybe right now is a time for you to get your shit together first. Let's just get you to a really good footing and a good, comfortable place. And maybe reevaluate in another 4 to 6 weeks to see if we can even start to shoot for improvement season. But have that conversation. Give that person the fucking option to at least decide, as opposed to just shoving it down their throat because you want to put more people on stage and create this massive following and these accolades for yourself.
I truly believe it is 10 times harder to not care about what you look like or be happy with what you look like when your hormones are jacked up and they're out of balance. I literally believe it's 10 times harder. Like on a good day, if you're feeling amazing and maybe you didn't come in as lean and dry in the morning as you wanted to, I don't know why, maybe beach, photo shoot, picture. You're like, oh, it's okay, brush it off. But like, one day your estrogen's too high or your estrogen's too low. And you're like, I fucking look ugly. Like I fucking look terrible. And you could look amazing. You could look fucking fantastic and better than you did the last time you didn't care about it when you had good hormones. It's 10 times harder.
But it doesn't matter what the mirror shows. It matters what you perceive.
Right. And the problem is a lot of people don't really understand how to look inwards, or they're not aware of that. So yeah.
There has to be an exorbitant amount of mental work done before anybody decides that they want to undergo a physique change. I don't care who you are, whether you're a competitor, whether you're a general population. If you're starting to think about transforming your body, if you haven't transformed or tried to do work on your mind yet, don't even start. Hire a therapist first. Spend that money on a therapist. Go and do the journaling and the meditating and the podcast listening and the book reading and the therapy sessions on a once a week or a bi-weekly basis, and get your head right. Get all that past trauma out. Understand where it's coming from. Understand your triggers. Understand your relationship with food. Improve or work on your body image. And once that stuff is taken care of, then you'll be coming from a place that's going to be a lot more flexible and receptive of potential variability in this process. Because how many fucking good days are you stringing together versus how many average days versus how many fucking complete destruction days do you have where you just want to lay on the couch and eat ice cream all day? Like people always think like it's just going to be this linear, nice slope upward. It's going to be nothing but improvement. No, you're going to have a good day, then a normal day, then a good day, then a bad day that drops you back 3 days. And you have to account for all that variability. And the coach's job is to coach through that roller coaster ride that somebody's going to be on. Not just keep pushing them into the ground harder. But again, the other side of the coin of that is if you're a competitor and you've chosen this life, it is going to be very, very time-consuming, all-consuming, and difficult. And that's what you have to understand, because when you choose it, what you're saying to that person is, I'm willing to accept all of the potential problems, all of the potential roadblocks that I'm going to hit, and I'm willing to get on with it no matter what. I don't have those, like my general population clients, Christmas time, we just passed into a new year. my number one goal for all of my clients was to not slip backwards. Like, I don't care if you fucking tracked your food. I don't care if you got any workouts in. I was just happy that you didn't panic and that you didn't slide backwards. That was a win for every one of my clients. I'm like, if you maintained weight during the Christmas season, you won. You won, because the average American puts on 8 to 10 pounds during the holidays.
Ooh.
So, like, if you put on 0 pounds, you won. If you put on 2 pounds, you won. So, as opposed to thinking that like you're being invited to 96 holiday parties, you're celebrating New Year's Eve, and then all of a sudden now you're consuming all this bullshit information about New Year, new you, new protocols, new diets, new training methodologies, buy this supplement, buy that powder, do this dude's workout. That's what you're being bombarded with on June 2.
Right.
When you're fucking hungover from December 31.
Social events are a big factor for that diet.
Like, what do you expect? If you're saying you're saying yes to every single outing, and you're like, oh, I don't know how I'm supposed to. Well, you got to either say no to some of them,
right,
or you better show up and be a monk, because that's what it's going to take.
The balance is important.
Yeah.
I'm on the other side where I actually decided to go visit my parents for the first time. Well, not for the first time, but like I never really see them.
Where are they?
They're in Texas, College
nice.
Station, but yeah, I just go back just to say hi and, you know, give my dues and stuff and say thanks. They weren't very happy though, because I was cutting during Christmas season. So
yeah, you're like sitting there with your meal prep container.
Yeah. It's at least they're understandable, which is nice. But my dad got like an appointment to go to what was it called? The Brazilian steakhouse.
Oh God.
And I couldn't go.
No, it's a salt and fat bomb.
Yeah.
You'd walk out of there.
Crazy salt and fat bomb, bro. So crazy. But that shit's good though. But can I ask you, could you go a little bit more in depth and maybe in a little bit more detail regarding like the influx of hormones that females go through when they're competing? You're talking about on peak week, and then during the competition day, as well as like afterwards when you're doing a refeed. I know that they go through a crazy influx of hormones, but is there any chance you could possibly go in more depth?
So I think you have to kind of back it up before you even get to any of those stages. You have to understand what's preceding all those hormonal changes, right? So if we just think simple physiology of what happens when you build versus what happens when you cut. When you're in a build, you're in a stage of sustenance, right? So you're feeding the body more. Yes, you're giving it training stimulus and you're giving it something to recover from, but at least you're doing it under the circumstance of more food. So your body typically won't respond negatively to that, especially from a female perspective, because if you're getting an ample amount of calories that's at least maintenance or above, you should still hormonally be, let's say you're at a clean slate and your hormones are perfect as a female. If you're eating at least the amount of food to maintain weight or to grow muscle, there's going to be no negative impact. But what happens as soon as you start the dieting phase? Typically what happens with most women as they start a dieting phase, you start to see the slow reduction in the pullback of food. You might see the increase in the more level of output from a cardiovascular standpoint. So now what you're doing is you're opening that metabolic gap. And the second you start opening that metabolic gap of energy inward, energy outward, you start to create changes inside the physiology which have to be protective. Because the body doesn't, the metabolism and the hormonal structure doesn't give a shit if you're lean.
Okay.
It just wants to keep you alive and breathing. So the number one indication that you're already unhealthy is the second you lose your period. So if a woman's, let's say 3 months into it, now they've gone 2 months, still a period, month 3, period gone, month 4, period still gone. Okay, now we know for a fact there's something compromised inside that hormonal system.
Yeah.
So at that point, it's a choice. What do we want to do? Do we want to keep going down the road that we're on because we already know we're fucked up, and how deep do we want to bury ourselves? Because we're pretty close, right? Now we're 16 weeks. We're probably going to be on show date really soon. Or what is the cost that we're going to have, the price that we're going to have to pay afterwards because we've spent so long burying your physiology? And this is what I think is hard, because obviously when you diet, you can expect to be hungry. When you diet, you can expect to see gut problems. You can expect to see sleep disruption. You can expect to see irritability. You can expect to see skin start to get a little bit worse, hair get a little bit more brittle,
dry collagen.
So all of these things,
PEDs.
Yeah, of course, and all aldosterone changes, which is the water molecule in your body. So like all of these things are changing, It's just a matter of what your level of tolerance from a physiological stress standpoint is to these changes. And are you willing to pay the consequence of how long it's going to be to recover those systems? So I think when it comes down to it is, I don't like to see women diet down for too long. I would rather diet them down hard. So I think women's physiologies are more stress adapted than men's are, so they can handle higher loads of stress, but for a shorter duration.
Interesting.
So instead of dieting a woman down for 12 or 16 weeks, and again, I don't train bodybuilders. I'm doing this off of anecdote and education. But if I was gonna train a bodybuilder, I would say I would rather see you build for, let's call it a fucking year, whatever. I don't care if you're bikini. I don't care. Like, let's build so much muscle on you and so much caloric freedom that when I do cut, I'm cutting from the highest number possible, and I'm cutting from the most healthy, sustained, robust place I possibly can, and then just fucking bury you into a deficit that maybe, average deficits are about 15 to 20% of calories. Let's bury them 35% right off the bat. Boom. And not give your body any choice but to recognize that deficit immediately. And I'm not even going to start to install hours of cardio at that point. Let me see what the food reduction does first. Obviously, we have to pull back on training volume because we don't need that recoverability, because the muscle mass is already there. Because what are a lot of female competitors doing? They're trying to build muscle while they're in a deficit, because they keep sending check-in photos to their coach, and their coach is like, oof, quad's not there yet. I'm like, well, how the fuck are you going to build a quad when you're eating 1,100 calories? You can't. So you're asking somebody to improve muscle mass and muscle size with absolutely no raw materials. So spend the time building and then cut down from a place that you know you're going to show something. So I would rather be overly aggressive with a build in a maintenance phase, because in a maintenance phase, you can reduce some body fat. You don't have to eat what you ate during a build. You can drop it down a little bit and at least see what happens. But now you're at least understanding that I don't have to be as aggressive with the installation of all my protocols, because a lot of coaches just flip over their toolbox and are just emptying everything out. We're going to diet you down. We're going to add an hour and a half of cardio a day. We're going to add in more T3, more Winstrol, more Equipo, like just throwing as much shit into the fire as possible, as opposed to like, let's try changing one thing a week. Did it work? Okay. Yeah, kind of cool. Let's keep going. Did it not work? Let's maybe see what didn't work and why, and then add in that next protocol. Like, why are you telling somebody to eat nothing and then do 75 hours of cardio a week and be completely drug saturated when you probably don't need it? And those are the issues I have when it comes to training people and coaching them to these degrees of body fat leanness and competition, because the protocols, even for competitors, sometimes are unreasonable. Like, you don't have to go to these depths and these lengths. Sometimes less is more. My opinion. So you got to think, with females, estrogen is their testosterone, right? For men, like, testosterone is what it is for us.
Right, it's their main hormone.
It's their main hormone. So when they're in a dieting phase, which is obviously, the second you hear the word diet or higher levels of volume of training and or cardio, immediately assume stress. Immediately, like, just equate the three things together. Like, lower calories equals stress, higher volume equals stress, higher training demand equals stress. Anything that's stressful on the female, even a male anatomy, doesn't matter, immediately makes that physiology turn downward. So it's like it's protecting you from dying. Like, the only thing that your body cares about is keeping you alive for as long as possible. And in the female context, it's keeping you alive long enough to produce a child. So all of their body functions and their systems are working together to create an environment of, can this woman be fertile enough to breed? And are those systems still in play? What happens when you diet and train a lot is those systems start to completely tank. The rate at which they tank is going to depend on the woman's background. Has she been a lifelong athlete? Is she somebody who handles just normal days stress well? Is she somebody who's very anxious and overwhelmed easily? Does she eat quality foods at the right quantities? Is she somebody who's been a chronic dieter her whole life? All of these things are going to be factors in how that woman's going to respond to a diet. But in a competition context, let's say it's competition number one for that person, which is probably the easiest, most blank canvas you'll ever get. If that person is going to be undergoing a competition prep, immediately get blood work before you even start, because now you have a basis of comparison. And then as you start to go through the preparation phase, let's say you've already gone through the growth phase. Now you're in the, I'm 16 weeks out. Let's get ready to prep. Well, it would make sense to get spot checks throughout that process of dieting, because you want to see how low things are actually going, because everything's going to drop off. Thyroid function will drop almost all across the board. Estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone will drop, and cortisol is going to shoot through the roof. Mm-hmm. So if those things are happening, there's an accepted level of, or almost a predictable level of drop. Like, you can probably assume that it's going to drop some, but how low is too low? And you can't really treat the number. You have to treat the individual. Mm-hmm. So you have to ask, like, how are you actually feeling? Like, is it acceptable to feel like you're feeling, or is it something that's too much based on where we're at now? Like, if you're 3 weeks into a diet and like you've already lost your period and it's gone, and like you just feel like absolute moody shit and you just want to binge and eat everything, clearly your body's not responding well to that deficit, or that deficit is just way too stressful. But typically it's almost not even the deficit. I think what happens in a lot of contexts is there's almost an immediate need that as soon as a coach diets a woman down, he immediately adds in more cardio, or she immediately adds in more cardio. Don't do both things at the same time. Like, if you're gonna create a deficit and a body fat reduction by way of reducing calories, great. Let that take shape and let that work. Don't give that person more work to do to create because the deficit created by burning calories on a piece of cardio equipment is not as significant as the amount of calories that are going to be reduced by way of just eating less. It's arguably much simpler to give somebody less food than it is to add more activity. And you're talking about a female who's already got a tough enough time keeping muscle on. Now you're just destroying any potential for what that physique's going to look like, because you're destroying potential muscle mass, because now testosterone is down too, and estrogen. So all of their chemicals that are telling them to be resilient are now lower. So they're by default, they're already becoming less and less resilient to stress. So as stress is accumulating by way of less food and more energy output, and already compromised hormonal panels and structures, you're now just making that individual even less adaptable to that stress. So it's just, you're going to start to see a downward sloping curve even faster all across the board. And that's thyroid included. So what do a lot of coaches do? T3 to try to stimulate thyroid production. Maybe we'll add in some, they like Anavar for women because Anavar tends to keep them hard and keep some muscle mass on them. But what are those drugs going to do? They're going to turn down more of the natural production of the stuff that's already getting depleted.
Yeah.
So now you're getting this upward tick of exogenous hormones, but you're getting this downward spiral of natural hormones. So you're having two opposing forces fighting against one another while accumulating stress, while potentially creating liver toxicity. And what happens to a lot of females is they actually start to lose their fertility because of this. Because now you're creating an environment where there's no luteinizing hormone anymore. There's no follicle stimulating hormone anymore, which is what's going to be representative of fertility health. And you're actually compromising that woman for the rest of her life. So a lot of times their PED usage in their competition phases is going to affect their ability to even have children down the line. Mm-hmm. And those are considerations that need to be taken. So if you're a coach and you don't understand that, you're basically making a woman infertile just because she wants to compete, and that doesn't have to happen.
Right. So a lot of coaches don't even believe that that's their responsibility, because all they care about is getting the awards.
Yeah, you hired me to get you jacked and stage lean. I did it. Yeah. But now you can't have kids.
Right.
And now you have no sex drive, and now your hair's falling out, and now your skin is actually getting worse and worse and worse, and now you're breaking out and you can't digest any type of food. But you looked amazing on stage. Was it worth it? Mm-hmm. And that's my fundamental distaste with bodybuilding, is when it's done egregiously poorly like that. Mm-hmm. I think there are good coaches out there. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm connected to plenty of them. And if anybody listening to this podcast ever needs a recommendation of a good coach, feel free to DM me. But do your due diligence. Like, if your coach isn't asking you for blood work before you start, don't even start. Mm-hmm. If they're not well versed enough to look at that panel and tell you whether you're even ready to go. Let's say you've already done some of the base level work as a female to get on stage. Like, coach, I spent a year building muscle. I'm ready to go. Let's go. The show's in August. It's February. Let's rock and roll. Okay, cool. Let's get blood work. If they don't ask that question right out of the gate, immediately dismiss them as a coach and move on to the next one. Because if they don't want to see what a starting point is of healthy hormonal balance, what's going to happen 3, 5, 6, 7 weeks from now? It's going to become a nightmare. And then when you're unresponsive and the coach has no methods of thinking outside the box or troubleshooting, and all they're doing is dropping food even more, not giving you refeeds, upping your level of cardio to some ungodly amount, like 2 hours a day, you're just going to keep burying yourself deeper and deeper into that hole. Before you know it, now you've created a lifelong problem which shouldn't have been there. So it's dangerous. It's just flat. I mean, I just consider it to be, it's almost like malpractice in the medical community. It's like if you're just egregiously doing something wrong because you're incompetent, which really is what it comes down to, is I just fucking don't know what I don't know. So if you don't know what you don't know, don't do it. That's why I don't coach competitors, because I'm not confident enough to go through those ups and downs with them. I don't want to have to check blood work once every 4 weeks. It's just not what I enjoy doing. I'd rather educate and perpetuate positive habits in general population people. To work with competitors is a whole different animal, and you better be ready to bite that off and chew it, because the damage that coach can do, like how much damage can you really do with a general population client? In reality, like if you're getting somebody who's novice, who's never been to the gym, who has no real frequency with eating habits, like the worst you can do is just kind of bury their calories to help them lose fat. So, okay, yeah, metabolically compromise them for a little while. But typically, if you assign 2 hours of cardio to them on a 7-day-a-week basis, they'll just laugh at you and won't do it. But if you tell, a girl who's about to be on stage in 6 weeks, well, the only way you're going to get there is if you take this, this, and this, and you have to do 3 hours of cardio a day, or else it's not going to happen. She's going to believe you.
Yeah.
Because you have gotten 7 other women on stage who look great, and she believes you because she loves the before and after pictures. So she's not even going to think twice. She'll, well, my coach said, dude, I got to do 3 hours of cardio a day and lift 6 days a week on 1,200 calories. Okay, what's going to happen?
Yeah, this is true. Have you ever had any accounts of having to pull someone out of a crazy hormone imbalance like that, whether or not it be natural or not?
The 2 reverse cases I had were not that hormonally fucked up yet. Like they had general downward levels of basically all of their entire, and when I say thyroid panel, folks, understand it's not just TSH. So if you have a doctor who's telling you your thyroid's normal and all they do is check thyroid stimulating hormone, fire that doctor and go to a new one.
Yeah, you're checking T3 and T4 as well.
There's 9 actual ones. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but there's 9 different markers in your thyroid. I think it's 8 or 9. Don't quote me on it, but it's definitely more than 3 or 4. Every one of those need to be working synergistically, and also understand that the thyroid and the sex hormones communicate with one another. So if sex hormones get dysregulated, thyroid will too, and vice versa. But you have to understand the way that hypothalamic adrenal axis works together to see what's causing what, because that is a chicken or the egg problem. Let's say, for example, estrogen is down for whatever reason, whether it's cyclical because of your cycle or whether it's super physiological because of something that's happening because of what stress you're under. Well, now because the estrogen is down, that's going to signal other hormones to start to have to act in place of that estrogen. So you might see an uptick in cortisol. You might see an uptick in thyroid stimulating hormone, which can actually look like your thyroid is dysfunctional when it's actually not. So you have to know what to actually look for, and the practitioner that you're working with has to be well versed in all of these different systems, or else they're not going to be able to give you the right type of answers, because you're not doing it from an I'm preventing death standpoint, because hormonal dysregulation isn't fatal. So Western medicine is not something that's addressing that issue, right? You walk into your doctor's office, your OBGYN, your endocrinologist even, they don't care that you're not feeling your best. They care that you're not dying or you don't have any type of cancerous issues that they have to treat now. So they're not looking to optimize you. But when you're somebody who's worried about physique or performance, you're trying to be the best version of yourself. So everything has to work nicely synergistically. So what I would recommend for most people is go down the functional health road, go down the women's clinic optimization road. If you're a male, you're going to a male clinic where their expert thing is TRT and testosterone replacement therapy. But those types of places will at least consider optimization versus just symptom management. Because it's easy to start to mask symptoms with X and Y and Z drug to get you to feel better immediately, but it's not getting to the root cause of the issue. Like, why is my estrogen down? Why is my TSH up? Why is my T4 down? Like, they're not doing that type of kind of under the hood digging around and poking around to know what's happening. They're just getting the blood work in a very basic level. And also remember too, blood work is a vision of what's happening on that day at that specific time. So yeah, so that you have to do it more than a couple times to see what the trend is, as opposed to I went and got blood work once a year and this is what I saw. Like, that doesn't tell me much. Like, I want to, especially if you're somebody who's engaged in this world and who's trying to compete and who's trying to optimize and look and feel your best, every 12 to 16 weeks you should be getting blood drawn. Why not? You're getting your purse and your car washed once every 3
agree.
weeks.
Yeah. People just worry that it's expensive, but
the alternative is more expensive.
Exactly. I think health is invaluable. So if you want to deal with anything in bodybuilding related to that extent, then I think it's important to make sure that you're okay making the investment. I get my blood work done every month. So
good.
Nice.
Good. And most people
nice
don't.
to see those numbers.
Why wouldn't you want to be informed?
Mm-hmm.
You know, why do you want to bury your head in the sand and not know?
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have the data and know how to, and at least if I don't know how to interpret it, give it to somebody who does, because they're going to have my best interest in mind. And they're actually, again, they're worried about optimization versus just symptom management. So why not? Like, and you understand that if you're entering the world of bodybuilding, expect to spend a lot of money between the outfits, between the coaching, between the food, the gym memberships, all of the self-care that has to come along with it, all the body work that you have to do, the blood work you have to do, the PEDs you have to buy. Like, this is not a cheap date. Like, this is a very expensive, like, what you end up putting into it is never going to be what you get out of it. Like, you're not, like, most people that are competing at a regional level, even on a national level, are not getting that investment back. Like, you're not, unless you're a coach who then uses their before and after pictures or has built up the knowledge and the accreditation to coach other people. You're doing this and you're spending a lot of money doing it, but you're not seeing a dime of that back. Like, I mean, think about some of even the top bodybuilders in the world. They're not, I mean, yeah, they're driving around in Lamborghinis and they're getting sponsorship deals, but that money doesn't last very long because your career is not that long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how long is the average bodybuilding career? 3 to 5, 3 to 7 years, maybe. If you're starting off in your mid to late 20s and stopping in your mid 30s. But as a woman, if you're starting in your early 20s, you're probably a little bit too early, in my opinion, because I don't think you're even fully developed yet from a muscular perspective. Like, most of your hormones aren't going to be at their height until you're probably 28 to 31. So think about it.
For a female.
Yeah.
Wow.
So their muscular potential doesn't start until that point.
Oh, no way.
So
28.
I would almost start, if I was a female, I would start training. Well, don't ever not train. I think that's silly. Always try to move your body and eat well. But if you're thinking about competition, unless you're like a genetically gifted freak, I mean, obviously your potential is going to keep going up, but please do yourself the favor and don't start dumping PEDs into your body before the age of 28 or 27, because you're going to make your 40s a fucking nightmare. An absolute nightmare. Because now, I mean, there's a woman, Jamie Pender is really good about talking about this stuff. I think she's an IFBB pro, or was an IFBB pro. I guess once you are, right? And she's very, very open about PED usage and safe PED usage and cycling off and knowing how to actually mentally deal with all the ups and downs. She's a magnificent resource and she's super available. So I think any woman who's looking at this world, look up Jamie Pender on Instagram. I know she's pretty available. She's got a big following, but she's pretty available, and she's got a lot of great YouTube videos that talk about all this stuff in detail. And she basically gives masterclass level lectures on hormonal dysregulation and how to deal with all of it and where to check and how to check. So it's fantastically wonderful information. But again, you have to know who she is to get that information. If you've never heard that name before, learn it.
Jamie Penders?
Yeah.
Okay. She doesn't have a podcast, does she? Or she just...
I think she does, but her YouTube channel is funny.
Okay.
I think she calls it, she had some really funny name.
Yeah.
Talked about enlarged clits.
Oh, wow.
And it was hysterical the way that she worded it, but she's a
okay, cool.
treasure trove of information.
Awesome.
Way more than I could ever possibly provide.
I'm going to look her up. Yeah. I'm going to look her up this week. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me some crazy stories and some of the most impactful stories about you with like open relationships, monogamy, polygamy, that got you to have the perspective you do.
So in 2020, I was kind of on the downward slope of a relationship that was probably more based on aesthetics and attraction than it was on like emotional connection. And I realized that she didn't want to be with me anymore. So September of that year, finally we sat down and I could just see her like pacing around the apartment. And I'm like, you want to break up with me, don't you? And she was like, why do you say that? I'm like, because I could smell it on you. I'm 36 at the time. You're 26. I've been spinning around the planet a little bit longer than you have. I've had these conversations. She's like, yeah, I do want to break up with you. I'm like, why? She's like, I don't. I'm like, because you want to fuck other people. Because you've never had a chance to do so. Because you've been a serial dater your whole life. And, you know, me at 36, who's been around the block, God knows how many times, I don't treat women like numbers, so I don't count. But Lord knows, Lord knows there's experience there.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the same appetite the way that she did because she felt like she was missing out on so much.
I get that.
And I didn't understand what her proclivities were sexually. She never really communicated them to me until the end. So we were very much misaligned on what our expectations were, especially in the bedroom. So when she finally said, like, I want to fuck other people, I'm like, cool. We still find each other attractive. We still love one another. There's no real problems. We just have this disconnect that now it sounds like we can fix. Why don't we try the open relationship thing? And for the first 2.5 months or so, it went beautifully. It got to a point where basically she would, and by the way, an open relationship with a hot, blonde, in shape female with fake tits is much easier for her to manage than it is for me to be on Hinge telling women that oh, by the way, I'm open. Would you like to hang out this weekend? She's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, my ex is like,
for you, I think for you, it requires a lot more investment in time with the actual women to make a relationship. Whereas it's like the guy sees her in the first few seconds. He's like, yeah, I'm going to fucking take that home.
Well, she literally just put it on her Hinge page. She's like, I'm open. I want to fuck. If you're hot, I'm fucking you. That's
Shit.
essentially how it went. And I wasn't going to say anything about it. I'm like, good for you. That's great. I can't do that. I either have to lie to women to get laid because they can't know that I'm in an open relationship because most of them aren't going to share me. I didn't realize that there was an entire community of people living this way. And if I knew sooner, I would have probably involved myself in that community a lot more. I got into the community a little bit further out after that because I understood that there are people that live in that way and it's totally accepting. It's not taboo. But an open relationship means you're actually communicating about everything, uncomfortable or not. And it got to the point where like she was going out and she was meeting guys on Hinge, going to their house, fucking them, coming home, taking videos of it, and we would watch it together. And I was completely fine with it. I had no problem physically sharing her body because I knew where her head was laying down every night. So there was no emotional connection to anybody else. It was purely sport fucking because she just never got to do it. Whereas for me, like I had fucked 10 years of my life straight, just being single, doing whatever the fuck I wanted.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that same like, oh, I got to go fuck everything that moves.
Because
like,
you already did it.
Yeah. Like,
You've been there and done that.
And not to mention, like I spent half my 30s hormonally compromised. I was low T. My libido was always off. Like when like when you hear older guys talk about achieving an erection, like that's the point I was at in my life. Like for me to get a boner was like, it was like a fucking chore. And I'm like, I would rather spend 3 hours eating you out and playing with you than trying to get hard and having sex with you because it's way more work for me that way.
Damn.
And the fact that I've been around the block and I've seen it all, not much really stimulates me anymore. So it's like you just being hot and naked does nothing for me. Like there's got to be very specific parameters that are like you have to be like Asian and on a horse backwards, like holding a dildo, and then maybe I'll be like, oh, cool, this is exciting. But like, so she starts going and we start going down this road where then she finally moves out. So now we're in 2 different apartments and we're open. And I'm getting absolutely no jealousy, but I'm also not really accumulating the numbers. She's like 5 guys ahead of me at this point. She's like, I'm like 1 girl in, she's 5 dudes in. I'm like, this is not aligning. And we're talking about it. And she's like, well, yeah, what do you want me to do? Slow down? I'm like, no, go live your life. Fucking have fun. Like, that's what this is all about. I'm like, just be safe about it. Please. And, like be open if you start catching feelings for somebody.
Right.
That's all I care about. Like, just be honest about it. So what happens? she caught feelings for somebody. And now a guy that was just a fucking dick on command was now coming over, sleeping over 2 nights a week. And now 2 nights a week turned into flowers on the front doorstep. And I'm coming over and I'm taking care of her dog because we had gotten a dog together, and I'm letting the dog out while she's at work, and I'm walking up to the door and there's a bouquet of flowers with, "What's up, babe? Miss you." And I'm bringing all this up and she's lying about it tooth and nail. Like, "I don't care about him. He's just a fuck buddy, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, listen, again, I'm 36. You're 26. I wasn't born yesterday.
Oh my God.
When a guy's gotten to this point that he's trying this hard, it means that you're no longer in an open relationship. Now it means you're closing me out and inviting him into your life, which is fine, but don't string me along.
Yeah.
That's all I ask for you to do. Have some respect in this arrangement. And if you truly feel that that's the connection you're pursuing, pursue it. But cut me out of the deal. Let me go off and do my own thing and start to disconnect myself from you so that I can start the repair process and heal and grieve, because I am losing a relationship with a person I love. Don't embarrass me and make me feel like a cuck in this situation, especially since I'm more of a dominant man, when I have to sit there and watch you do this, but also fall in love with somebody in the process of it. So I still believe in polyamory. I still believe in an open relationship. I think with the right type of couple, with the right level of communication, it works really, really well. But when somebody is dishonest about it,
it's no longer open.
Well, or somebody's not even emotionally ready to be in that water yet. Like, I think at 26, if all you've ever done was date a dude after a dude after a dude, you don't know what the fuck polyamory is. You don't know what an open relationship feels like. You've never even been by yourself. Like, I spent 10 years alone, like swimming in shark-infested waters, figuring life out, crying, being happy, working with therapists, getting my heart broken, breaking other people's hearts. I've seen the spectrum of life up and down across the continuum. You haven't. So we just got into something that just didn't work for us. And I think that if you're somebody who's dabbling in those waters, I encourage you to do it, because I do believe that there's such thing as emotional loyalty. Like, I think that people can be emotionally loyal to one another. Like, I love you and only you. I like other people, right? I like their company. I like the way they look. I like the way that we hang out. I like the banter we have back and forth. That's all great. It doesn't mean I love them and I'm investing my life with them. I can fuck them. I can bring them out to dinner. I can have fun with them. I can turn them on. I can please them. I can even have them cry on my shoulder, but I'm still coming home to you. You're still my number one person. That's an effective open relationship to me, because then every party knows exactly what's going on. And there's no hiding behind the shadows and sneaking around, because if it's open, let it be open. It's going to be uncomfortable. Somebody's going to probably feel something at some point.
This is why most people get scared by this. The uncomfort is just too uncomfortable.
And you have to be
really,
really. So the funny thing about
you gotta be fucking confident.
That's the other part. And listen, we're being open. I've never been super pleased with my male appendage. Like, Lord knows, porn has ruined that for all men. Like, we see these 20-inch cocks online, and we think that's the average. So she happens to fall in love with a guy who tends to have this just enormous dick, and I'm seeing him use it on her because she's showing me videos. So now not only is she falling in love with this dude, but in my fucked up brain, I'm like, well, she's replacing me because his dick is bigger. So now I have this massive amount of penis envy, and I'm like looking at like penis enlargement surgery centers.
Penis envy.
But like it was real, because not only is the love of my life at that time replacing my love with his love, she's also replacing my body with his body, who tends to be the dude had like beautiful long hair, and he was all jacked and tattooed, and like I'm like, dude, you're basically like fucking Chris Hemsworth, and then I'm here. Like, this is a problem. So it was a hard pill to swallow, but it was probably one of the most valuable lessons I'd ever learned in my life, sexually and from a relationship standpoint. But it also made me aware of the things I needed to work on from a confidence issue and from a relationship issue and from the trauma that I went through and from the fact that I had a lot to offer as a man. So it did more net positive than it did negative for me. And, now would I ever get back into an open relationship? Yeah, I think I could do it productively if the partner was was very, very communicative and was very, very self-aware and mature, because it requires a massive amount of maturity.
So much.
But I also do believe that humans are meant to be not monogamous, physically at least. Physically.
I actually believe that we're meant to, not for the first period of time in our lives, but at a certain point, just as you've experienced yourself, all of us tend to reach a place where we've been there and we've done that. Or maybe our hormones, our natural hormones, lead us to a place where we have been there and done that and now no longer find that itch to scratch.
Yeah.
You're older now, and now what suits you is a partner. What suits you more is a partner, someone to live life with, someone to, overcome these hurdles with together, because this is your best friend, but of the opposite sex or whatever sex that you're into. And at the end of the day, like, I do truly believe that I am going to end this life with a monogamous relationship with a partner. This is funny because there's probably going to be so many freaking guys that are listening to this that are just going to be absolutely turned off instantly. So many dudes that listen to my podcast, they'll just be like, that's not it. Like, fuck open relationships. And like, I get it, man. I get it. Like, if you don't see letting your girl do that and it's a sign of dominance for you to not allow your girl to see any other guy or touch any other guy like that, like she's your protection, that's okay. That's totally fine. That's absolutely okay. We're not saying that polygamy is a way. I'm not saying that polygamy is a way or polyamory is the way. Definitely not. Definitely not. Like that shit sucks, bro.
It's like
that
nutrition
shit
and
fucking
exercise.
sucks. Yeah, but the fact of the matter is, sorry if I have to say it like this for all the females that are listening, if this turns you off in the way that I say it, but I know that this is a way that's going to at least relate to many men out there. I was able to fuck the bitches that I wanted to fuck as well. And she was able to experience the things that she wanted to experience as a 21, 22, 23-year-old. How young are you? How many years left do you have to experience their life and do things like that if that's something you're into? Also, sorry for the people out there who believe in who are very Catholic or anything like that as well. You have your beliefs, but the fact is that she wanted to experience certain things, and who am I to take away that from her? The other option would be for me to just fucking break up with her and be like, you go do your shit. I don't care. I'm going to go talk to other people. I'm going to see other people. But fact of the matter is, we found each other and I fucking loved her. And we saw a real partnership. And sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes it just happens out of nowhere. Sometimes you just meet somebody where you're like, wow, like you guys fucking click like that. Like you literally work so well together somehow. Like, this is a partner. This is really a potential like best friend to live through life with. So what do you do in that situation when you're fucking panicking? Because you kind of want to make this work, but at the same time, are you about to take away 10 years of experiences that she was going to hold? And like what is the number one thing that people number one negative thought that people have before they die? It's the regrets that they weren't able to do something. The absolute regrets that you weren't able to do something before you die, which means that is probably one of the most important things for you to accomplish in life. I don't want her to live with regrets. I don't want her to live with regrets because I wouldn't want myself to live with regrets. So that is one reason we did the open relationship. And the other way I see open relationships as valuable is not because it's what I want to end my life with. It's because simply for that period of time, it's another fucking challenge to put myself through, another trial of fire to run myself through so I can become stronger. I can become more tough. I can become more calloused. I can become more mature. I can gain some sort of wisdom or something. To be honest, there's no better teacher out there that I've ever experienced than the open relationship, I think. I used to be the most jealous person as a kid, but by going through the open relationship, was I able to gain a lot of things that I never believed I could. And that's certain levels of empathy, certain levels of connection, being able to relate to females in ways that I never thought I could. Overcoming jealousy.
Yeah.
And just having the confidence that I'm good enough for myself.
And how many problems are stemmed in relationships because of lack of communication and because of jealousy?
Yeah.
I mean, most people fail because of those two things. So if you can manage those two things and you're in a partnership that's non-obligatory, because the second you get married, right, like there's a level of obligation immediately. Like, I married you, so now there's a property value to this, as opposed to two people just being aligned for however long they're going to be aligned for. They can leave at any moment. They can break this up and be done with it with no strings attached, but they choose actively daily to stay together. There's a beautiful thing in that to me.
Yep.
Like,
and I think it's easier to choose when you're in an open relationship than when you're in a closed relationship where things are expected.
and there's no choice.
Yeah, it feels like there's no choice at least.
But there isn't. That's it. Like, this is how it is. Like, you are here because if you fuck up, there's a consequence.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to be your human self anymore. And you're suppressing certain feelings and sensations and desires.
Right.
Or you're not even communicating those things. So either way, are you truly living life to its fullest? Now, I'm not saying that like the pursuit of happiness is fucking everything that moves. I think a lot of people could take that conversation and in context, they're like, well, you're just a pig and you just want to fuck. No. But the ability to be able to allow two people to walk side by side but grow individually, whether that's spiritually, mentally, emotionally, sexually, however else, is important to me. Because that means that you're living your authentic life.
Right.
And why the second that there's an obligation placed on human connection, it dumbs down the connection immediately, to me at least. Like, you're nice to people at work because you have to fucking be, because you're there every day. Are you nice to them when you guys go get beers out at the office? If there was no consequence, you probably wouldn't be, because they're probably not your people. Like, you choose your friends. You don't choose your family. You choose your relationship. But the second you lock yourself into something, there's a level of obligation. And now that choice has been removed.
You guys have created that obligation. Right. I think the way to survive that is for you both to actively mentally actively choose each other every day.
Yes.
As the perspective.
Hard.
Exactly.
Hard.
Very hard when that's not the case, right? When it's more obligatory or like there's expectations, right? Also, I wanted to say sorry for calling females bitches. I don't actually mean that. Females are amazing creatures, and most of my closest best friends are females. So, anyways, but what else? That's a crazy heavy story, though.
Was heavy, but now it's opened up a lot of light.
Yeah,
you know, and I think it took me 36 years to get to that point.
Wow.
So anybody who's like thinking that it's too late to mentally develop or improve, like, it's never too late. You can always learn something.
How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
38.
38?
I'll be 39 next month.
Wow, so that was just 2 years ago. Yeah. So we both experienced one hell of a roller coaster 2 years ago.
Only way to live, man.
I agree.
Honestly, like, it's the, like you said, the school of hard knocks, the streets, the mean things that happen in life, or the real things that happen in life. And if you don't have enough acceptance and adaptability to that, you're always going to be a victim. And I refuse to be.
I had never felt more emotional distress in my entire life. So when I was in that, like,
I cried multiple times a day, every day for months, probably from November to February. I cried every single day. And it's fine. Like, what am I going to do? It's better than what I would have done 10 years ago, which is do enough blow and drink enough booze to kill a small town.
Right.
But in this case,
to numb the feelings out.
I did it sober as fuck, and I did it with a therapist.
100%.
That's growth.
There's almost something beautiful about feeling the highs yet feeling the lowest lows in life, just to do it. It's really another life. To be honest, I never felt more alive than when I was in the open relationship container. I never felt more passion than when I was in the open relationship container. When she would come home, I never felt more fire in a way. And sometimes it wasn't angry. It wasn't just angry fire, because when she came home, she was so passionate about me too. You know, when she came home, she would also be crying there too about how much she missed me. And, you know, obviously when the girl comes home and she is open with you and does have to tell you the things that she's experienced, she has the fear that she's going to lose you if she's being truthful. And so that incurs a lot of emotion, a lot of passion as well. And if you can see the other person for the pain they're going through, and you can still continue to love them unconditionally, I think there's no more stronger feeling, no more stronger connection, No stronger intimacy that you can experience
No, that's intimacy.
than that unconditional love.
Right? Like I think we live in a society where people equate sex to intimacy. Sex is bumping parts. Sex is essentially no different than hunger and thirst.
Mm-hmm.
It's a physiological response to a need that's happening inside the body, usually hormonally driven.
Yeah.
So fulfill that thirst. I mean, the way that I think about it, don't hurt anybody in the process of it,
Right.
but don't equate bumping parts to being intimate.
Yeah.
Intimacy is learning the ins and outs of an individual's spirit, soul, their hopes, their dreams, their fears, and being next to them no matter what. You getting naked together and doing stuff that's fun is not intimacy, because you can. And if you don't understand that distinction, you may never understand that distinction, and you may never get to the level where you can separate the two. But I think the people that can separate sex and intimacy are the ones who reach a higher level of quality relationships.
It's an interesting place too, where you separate out sex and intimacy, but it's like if you're very aware of both, but then you can combine everything at the same time. You would have like moments of like, I don't know if you've ever had like moments of like tantra with sex where you guys have like a meditative sexual experience where you guys almost like form into one. I'm like starting to talk some crazy shit.
My blood pressure's always too high for tantra. So unfortunately, I was never able to turn that fight or flight off when I was in there, because I was just hoping not to pass out. But, you know, I don't discount that can happen.
Oh, shit. That's funny. That's funny as shit. Yeah, definitely greatest experiences. I really couldn't take envisioning her with the other person though, like especially when the emotional connection started being created. And I was just seeing it from the other side happening before my eyes, and I was like, I know where this is going, and I don't really know what to do. It's definitely the shittiest feeling I've had, and it's a very hopeless feeling. But looking back at it now, though, it's crazy because I feel like for any future relationship I have, I will know exactly what to do in terms of acting in love and making sure I treat her like the queen that she deserves. So that's a
perfect point.
Yeah, good experience to like just knock me on the head and tell me what's up.
Yeah.
But do you have any like success stories or any like stories I guess of like your any relationships after this open relationship?
I've just gotten to a point now where I value each individual for what they are and who they are. So I don't really, and I think the other thing that I reduced my thinking about is that when I'm with somebody, they're mine. There's no sense of ownership anymore.
Yeah, I feel that too.
You know, that's just
it's easier for me to appreciate the other person as a person.
Yeah, like
for their individuality.
We're two people in space, and we're not creating anxiety for one another. Like that's all I care about. Like I'm at a point in my life where like my career is really important to me. I help I give away so much of myself that's the priority. The priority is like I don't have these these feelings or these hopes of I have to be a certain way by a certain date. Like there's no clock ticking for me. There's no, if I'm not with this ideal partner, then I've failed. Like I think people have all these ideas of like, I'm only successful if I have the house and the car and the job and the wife and the kids. I don't want children. I don't care if I get married or not. What I do care about is if I leave a long lasting positive impact in as many lives that I've touched as possible. That's all I care about.
Fuck yeah.
But I don't have to be friends with them, but I want to know that as long as I was able to positively change the course of your life, then I've done my part and I can go out on a happy note.
Oh yeah. I love that, bro. All right. Well, with that, let's end. I have two last questions to ask you. So if you were to die tomorrow, what would the first thing be that you would do right now?
Right now?
Yeah.
I would probably tell the people in my immediate circle that they do matter to me, even though I may have not shown it as much as I should have. Because I don't ever want to go out on the note that, like, it's almost like going to bed fighting. Like I don't want the last impression of our interaction to be that I wasn't present or cared enough, because sometimes people disconnect just because of space and time.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you like each other any less or value each other any less. Just means that other things were allowed to get in the way and you allowed them to. So I would probably voice my devotion for the people that have shaped my mental health.
I love that. It's awesome. And then if you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be?
I really like Wolverines.
Dude, no way. That's funny.
He's probably my favorite superhero because he can repair, which in the bodybuilding space, how great is that?
Oh yeah.
And having the claws wouldn't be bad. But the problem is he doesn't die. So I don't want to be eternal.
Ah, okay.
I don't want to live forever. Fuck that. I don't want to live a life where everybody else around me that I care about is dying and I'm the only one left.
I don't think I would either, to be honest.
I think the easy one is flying. Like, who wouldn't want to get from A to B quicker? Mm-hmm. So let's go with flying.
Flying? Okay. Yeah. Cool. That's dope.
That's the easy one.
That's sick. That's hilarious, bro. You already look like a Wolverine.
I've gotten that before.
Nice. Mine was teleportation, so it's kind of similar.
It's flying
A to B quicker.
Flying express.
Flying express without enjoying the ride in between.
Yeah, you're just
shit.
I'm just there. I want to see the scenery.
No, yeah. Maybe I should switch my answer and change my perspective. All right. Well, thanks for being on the podcast, man. That was dope. That was super dope. So where can we find you? What are your socials?
I'm at 4 Weeks to the Beach on Instagram. The number's 4 and the number's 2. That's where I spend most of my time. That's where all my coaching philosophy is. That's where I have people sign up if they want to get more information, or I have people DM me questions that they have about fitness and nutrition. I'm also hosting a coaches summit in Vegas in March of this year, the 6th and 7th of March. It's a summit meant for the education of coaches to further their knowledge base across a myriad of topics. So if you're a coach out there and you're looking to level up, check out the Real Coaches Summit 2023. That's on my social as well. But otherwise, that's really where I spend my time, or in my office.
Okay. Bet. Hell yeah.
That's where I'm at.
And Code Nile will support me for the podcast. But if you guys want to support the podcast without having to do anything required with cost, then you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then please rate us a 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So thank you guys again for everything. And then finally, my HRT clinic, Trenscend HRT, is the clinic where I get my TRT, my healing peptides, as well as all the other things that I have for hair loss prevention and erectile dysfunction, if you may have that. So thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Transparent with Nile Naga, and see you next time.